It's time for Living with Victory, a program of hope and encouragement brought to you by Friends of Compassion and listeners like you. Now here's your host, President of Compassion for Kids, Tony Giorgio, with today's message of perseverance.
Welcome to Living with Victory. I'm your host, Tony Giorgio, proving life isn't about waiting for the storms to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. And support for this ministry comes from listeners just like you. There are no commercial sponsors. And Happy New Year. Glad that you're here. Well, of course, I know that you're tired. You've been out last night to the midnight services, and I'm sure nobody has a headache from anything else. Anyway, this is a new beginning. A new beginning. The year is 2012. Could you imagine? There's going to be a lot new this year, especially in the political arena, I think. A lot needs to change. Change comes on a continuing basis, sometimes whether you want it or not. Adapting to it is the important thing, no matter which way it goes. And that's where the whole concept, I guess, of the show is, about dancing in the rain. You know, when the storms come, you got to dance. And I remember a lot of my dance ticket was really filled in, without a doubt. And I also can go back and reminisce in this year on watching the trolley cars go by. Now, some of you in the country, in rural areas, you're not going to be identifying with that. But living in Brooklyn, New York, on a busy street, when I was a kid, buses did not run till later on, but these things called trolley cars did. And they were attached to wires up above on the poles, and they ran on tracks. And later on, they modernized to electric buses. Think of this. The bus ran on tracks. It was on an electric cable. And I remember this as a kid. Honestly, I did not go out partying last night, trust me. But I can tell you, this is fact from my childhood. Well, that's probably in the late 40s or early 50s. We had a fellow, pretty well known, Guy Lombardo, who every single year had the celebration. And he did a whole New Year's Eve show from the band shell out at Jones Beach in New York. And he was there for, I don't know how many years. The funny part is that in my family, it's said that he was my, third cousin removed or something. He was removed because I never met him. I didn't know him except for the television and radio and his records and that sort of thing. But every year I can remember sitting down as 12 o'clock approached the midnight hour, and we had to watch and listen to Guy Lombardo and The Ball Came Down and all of that. That was my childhood for many, many, many years, in New York. The last thing you wanted to do on New Year's Eve was go into Manhattan, go into New York City and mingle with at least 1 million people. It's sort of like you don't want to go to Disney World in Orlando in mid-July or August. That's a no-no. But the memories of all of that are so pleasant and so pleasing to me. But I also realized that, do you know how long ago that was? I think about it and I say to myself, well, you have to realize, I think Harry S. Truman was president, and I'm going back. I remember Harry S. Truman. I remember him in his presidency as a little kid. And what I also remember, and I could never forget, his daughter. I think her name was Margaret. I'm not sure, but I think it was Margaret. She used to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show, if you remember Ed Sullivan, and a lot of stars got their start by appearing on Ed Sullivan, and Elvis Presley was one of them, the Beatles. She would be on there as a guest, and she played piano. Not bad from what I remember. I'm not too sure, but there was the president's daughter on the Ed Sullivan Show playing the piano. That's a little different, but that's going some, going back. And I also remember during my childhood, President Dwight Eisenhower. I remember the general as the President of the United States. Nobody's going to believe this. I could go back if you mention something. And what gets me, I worked with the kids at night at a recreation center, at the Waynesville Recreation Center. And I mentioned some of these things and some of these people. They say, who? What? What are you talking about? Who is that? What is that? And I realized at that point that, wow, you've stepped way, way into the future. You've come a long way, baby. You remember there was a commercial, I don't know what it was for, and you've come a long way. Well, we've come a long way. And you keep going. Time doesn't stop, but you adapt. And I have. I'm a 68-year-old man, but I've adapted, number one, to a brand new environment. I'm here in Western North Carolina. Gosh, this is my 10th year, and I love this place. Oh, the mountains, the beauty. It amazes me how much of God's hand is around us. It just couldn't have happened. A great explosion could not have made this much detailed beauty. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are, what you are. It doesn't happen that way. Well, my Bible tells me so. But it's such a beautiful place. It is. I know this, that I could not look out my window in Brooklyn and see horses grazing in a field right across from my house. I couldn't do that. And I could not step out the back door and have black Angus cows behind me in the pasture, my neighbor's pasture. Manzi has all kinds of cows up there. That is, such a welcome sight for a city boy. You have no idea. That's a blessing to me. Today, we have to remember the good times, not the bad times. We're moving forward. It stays behind, but you take the good and leave the bad. And that's what this is all about. This is a new beginning. This is a fresh start. This is a deep breath, something new. Yeah, it's a number on a calendar, and yesterday and today aren't that far apart, but you make them a little different. It's a start over point. And there's a lot of people make resolutions. They got to keep it's a new year, The resolution is to remember. Remember your God. Remember. Other things that I remember as a kid. We were all teenagers. We were all there. And I remember very well being an older teenager and going out and partying New Year's Eve until one time I ended up, and I don't know how. Well, we were at a bar and grill or something at a party. We were drinking and we were having a heck of a time. And I was all dressed up. I had what they call a car coat. If you know that, it's a pretty heavy coat. It doesn't go all the way down to, it's above the knees, so you can sit in a car comfortably. I guess that's where it came from. But it was pretty heavy. I'm in New York. It's winter. And I woke up the next morning, I guess it was New Year's Day, on somebody's lawn. Not in the lawn. I felt like I should have been in the lawn, but I was on the lawn. And as I was awakened by the person in the house, they noticed that I had this car coat ripped. You have to picture this from the shoulder, the front shoulder, all the way down. I mean, it was torn. It was ripped off. Now, I guess I have to say, well, maybe I'm lucky I didn't know what was going on, because it took a lot of strength to do whatever did that, and I'm still breathing, so I don't know what I got into. But that coat was destroyed. You have no idea, unless you know what I'm talking about. It's like a Navy coat, the Navy coats that are around now. Kids are wearing them and people are wearing them. They're pretty heavy. This thing was ripped. And I, till this day, don't know how that ever happened. But the good thing is, I also realized why it happened. It happened because I was not lucid. I was not in my right mind. I had had alcohol to the point where I didn't know where I was or what I was doing. Or I'd never end up sleeping on somebody's lawn overnight or getting my coat ripped up that way. That would be an impossibility. So it taught me something. And if there's anybody listening out there who's got a headache this morning, I've been there, done that, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Yeah. I mean, social drinking and all that, you can put tags on that, yeah. But understand that overindulgence in anything, especially drinking alcohol, could put you in a very, very serious position. And others. Now, at that time, I wasn't driving. I didn't have a car. But imagine if I was stupid enough to get behind the wheel of a car, which a lot of people are today, unfortunately. But I didn't do that. I just don't know what I did. But I remember being at the bar, New Year's Eve. My friend was a bartender. And yeah, I came from that element. Yes, I was that way. You could say I was a sinner, before I repented. But aren't we all? Weren't we all? I remember my friend pouring straight liquor into a beer glass. In those days, they were the tall glasses, right? And he's daring me to drink, obviously, what I could remember. But I don't think I got halfway through this stuff, because I think it was straight vodka or something. I don't know. I don't remember. And I went completely out and didn't know where I was or what I was doing. So you don't have to. That wasn't celebrating, though. See, that wasn't fun. At the time, we thought it was fun. Yeah, I'm having a great time. I'm drinking with the guys. I'm doing, man, I'm a man. I'm this, I'm that. You're stupid. I'm talking to myself, okay? You can't. That's hurting yourself and hurting others. So I look back over that and I say, well, thank God I didn't pursue it any further, because I learned my lesson. And as long as you learn lessons, you can make mistakes. Just don't make the same mistake twice. And that one would have cost me a life, maybe. I don't know. See, I don't know. But I didn't do things like that anymore. Hey, I really hope you've had a great day and have a happy, happy New Year. And go after it. It's brand spanking new. The only thing that is constant now is your Lord Jesus Christ. He's there. He's moving with you. Take hold and use it. Use him as your friend and your mentor and your leader into this new year. This is Tony Giorgio saying, hey, you keep dancing in the rain. We love you all. From my family to yours, you guys have a great, prosperous new year, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to Living with Victory with your host, motivational and inspirational speaker, Tony Giorgio. Support for Living with Victory comes from Friends of Compassion and listeners like you. Your tax-deductible donations can be sent to Compassion for Kids, P.O. Box 1982, Maggie Valley, North Carolina, 28751. Tony is also available to speak to your group or organization. You can call him at 828-926-4600. Join us again next week at this time for another uplifting story of dancing in the rain.
Jesus is with me when the storm clouds gather. He's standing by my side.